Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Chelsea. I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Georgia, and in today's video I'm going to walk you through how I prepared to take the jurisprudence exam to get licensed as a psychologist in Georgia. I'm going to show you the documents that I used to prepare ahead of time that helped me to create a study guide, and I'm going to show you the documents that I used as I was reading, studying, and making notes. At the end, I'll just talk a little briefly about what my experience was like taking the jurisprudence exam. So if you haven't already seen the previous videos that I've done in this series of getting licensed as a psychologist in Georgia, I highly encourage you to check out those videos before this one. And the first one, I walked you through the entire process from start to finish. It was very detailed. I included the cost of everything that I did for each step of the process. And I also shared my experience of how I prepared to take the EPPP parts 1 and 2. So I hope that you find those videos helpful, and I hope that you'll find this one helpful too. So let's get into the documents. So this is the licensure process syllabus that I created to follow for preparing for all the exams that I had to do to get licensed as a psychologist. And so if you are new to the channel, I always create a syllabus to help myself be on track with making progress towards big goals that I set. And so I'm going to begin with where I started preparing for the jurisprudence exam. So here you can see I passed the EPPP Part 1 on January 19th, and the first thing that I did to prepare for the jurisprudence exam was prepare a study guide. So what I did was search the web for a document that would help me get a better understanding of what to expect from the jurisprudence exam, and I came across this document. This document was prepared by the company that hosts the jurisprudence exams, and I found it to be very helpful because it laid out everything that you would need to know in terms of getting registered, accommodations that you could have for the exam, different site locations to go to. It gave you instructions on how to report to the site and taking the test as well. And I also like that it didn't leave any questions for what to expect from the exam. So it told you how many questions it would have, the time that you were allowed, the passing score that you would need. And it also gave a rundown of the different topics for the exam and the different type of questions that would be asked for each section and how many items would come from each section. So I found that to be very helpful in preparing and creating my own study guide. They also included the different laws that you should study in preparing for the exam. So what I did was click the links to these laws and the documents that they had listed. One of these is the Georgia board's rules. So they're rules for psychologists to follow, and I use that to prepare my study guide. And this was just an overview that I had pulled from that documents that I use as my study plan. And so I just had everything in one place here that I was going to focus on. And these were all the laws that I made sure to copy and trace onto a document that I used to study, because you had to go into the link every time you wanted to have access to a document. So I decided that it would be easier for me to just put everything on one document so I could just open it and read it whenever I needed to. And then also I found some flashcards to use as well. So I just kept everything that could be used for a study guide for anyone else in this one document here. So if you are interested in getting this document, you can, or you can just search online. So back to the syllabus. I created my study guide by going to each site and putting all the laws on one document in one place for each one so I could be more organized. And then I didn't start actually reading the documents until about a month later. So in February is when I started to read for the jurisprudence exam. So you can see here, I started with the general licensing provisions and the psychology laws. So I'm going to show you what each document looks like, but just as an overview of what I did, I read through each document all the way through. As you can see, I dedicated about 2 weeks to just reading through each document one time, and I reviewed them all at least once or twice after giving them a complete read. So you can see I was just rereading the entire documents, committing them to my memory for a span of about just under 2 months before I actually took the exam at the beginning of April. So this is just to give you an idea of how simple the preparation process was for this. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what the documents look like now. So this is the general licensing provisions. This was a compilation of laws that's related to getting licensed in the state of Georgia for different kinds of fields. So it wasn't specific to psychology. It was just covering just basic licensing laws and regulations, and if your license were to get sanctioned or any limitations were put on your license and things like that. So it was very general and broad, but you still would want to review these things because there were some questions that asked about it on the exam. This next document here was specifically for the Georgia laws for psychology. And this specific chapter was for psychologists that I had saved, and it tells you the codes that I had on this document here. And so this was just very detailed about the process of like how the board, the Georgia Board of Psychologists is created, and the application requirements that you have to do to get licensed, provisional license, and all these things, penalties for violations that are made. And so this one was one of the shorter documents here. This next document was for other related Georgia laws that could tie into the field of psychology. So they weren't specific to psychologists, but they were related to what we would encounter in our field. So some of these laws that they had cited to be studied were like related to crimes, sexual offenses. Imagine like if your client was a victim of a crime, things like that. Or if the psychologists themselves perpetuated one of these crimes, it tells you what the penalties would be. Here you have laws about parent and child relationships, reporting that will be required by mandated reporters. And so these were important things to study. It also covered like protected classes like disabled adults and the elderly, when you should report abuse or neglect in those situations. It had laws about record keeping and things of that nature. So that was the gist of this other related laws document. And then this last document was the longest one. It was the Georgia State Board of Examiners of Psychologist rules. And these were all of the rules that the board created for psychologists to follow. And so here's just an overview of everything that it captured. It was giving you the rules about licensure by the different routes like examination, being endorsed. It had a copy of the Code of Ethics, Code of Conduct, disciplinary hearings, and all the things of that nature. And so it was a very long and detailed document, and I spent a lot of time making sure that I went through this one multiple times when I was studying, because I really wanted to commit this and the other Georgia laws to my memory for this exam specifically. And then lastly, these were the flashcards that I found online. I did a search and I found this to be very helpful. I did this the day of my exam because it was at 1 o'clock. And so I went through these flashcards, and all you had to do was read the question and then you click it and then it would tell you the answer. And then you could just go through them like this. I found it to be very helpful study tool to use. And so I would recommend anyone who is desiring to have other ways of studying besides just reading, but you want to test your knowledge, flashcards would be a good way to help you study for the jurisprudence exam. So those are all of the documents that I used to prepare and study for the exam. When I went to the testing center, it was pretty small, but I was in and out. It was less than an hour, and I wasn't really nervous because I had been doing a refresher of the material, rereading the documents, doing the flashcards the day of. And so when I did it, the answers were just coming to my mind back to back. And at the end, it told me that I passed. It didn't tell me the score that I got, but it was pretty quick. It wasn't as stressful or thought-provoking as the EPPP Part 1 was. So I would definitely say try not to worry too hard about it. As long as you read the materials, you commit the information to your memory, you'll do just fine. There were no tricks, there were no surprises or anything like that. So if you found this video to be helpful, let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions or comments, things you want me to talk about going forward, let me know. In the last video of this series, I will be covering how I studied and prepared for the oral exam. So if you're interested in seeing that, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.